good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Giovanni Nicosia. I'm a real estate attorney. I've been an attorney in Southport for over 25 years, almost 26 years now, kind of crazy. And I own a title company called Supreme Title Escrow. And basically, since October 1st, we've been doing classes pretty much 2 to 3 times a week. I mean, actually, after this week, it's gonna be 6 months consistently on different, real estate related topics that I think are going to benefit you. Like today, I have Brian Murillo speaking. I bring in different speakers and things that I think are going to help you out and help you, educate you and make you better realtors. Today, basically doing a class with Brian Murillo. Brian is, he's a realtor that I met really when he first got started 8 years now, right? And
yeah.
The truth is, I remember when Brian, I didn't tell Brian I was going to say this, but I remember when he first started, I was in-house title at Keller Williams. And he was literally there every day. He's making phone calls. He's on weekends, he's doing open houses. And I'm sure at first for him it was hard, which I'm sure, but he kept doing it. He kept doing it. And from the beginning, I saw in him that he was going to be successful. I just knew it. There's very few agents I can say that about by seeing them, because most people truly give up, honestly. But he just kept doing it, and it paid off. Basically, Brian right now he's with eXp Realty. He's coaching other agents. He's a real estate investor. He's done over 400 transactions in the last 8 years. He averages over $20 million in closings a year. So as I said, he's really, taking it to another level, but it's from hard work. It's not like it's just luck or easy. It's from hard work. So, everyone on this call, you can be very successful in this business, but you got to work, just like Brian did. So today we're going to do a class on basically making an extra $100,000 a year working with buyers. I'm not going to lie to you, we planned this class before the North Settlement. I asked Brian, do you want to do this class?
Yeah.
So we're going to do it. And what you guys could do, so maybe, because there's a lot of people there's already 43 people on the call. So we kind of are, I just interrupted Brian. Maybe if you guys put questions in the chat and then I'll ask them. And then at the end, we'll do you can unmute yourself and we'll do a question and answer like Bob. Okay, is that good? So Brian, you want to get started?
Let's go. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's true, man. And it's nice to hear from you. And it's nice to have people like you that were witness of that. I remember I've been doing this, like Giovanni said, for 8 years. The first 4 years was a struggle, man. I tried a little bit of everything. Circle prospecting, Inspire, Feasibles. And part of my day-to-day was going to the office and make calls. And over the weekend, I was doing open houses. I tried a little bit of everything and then I stick to open houses. So through that, I got to work with a lot of buyers. Why do you think that it's easier to work with buyers, or was easier to work with buyers? Right now, fast forward 8 years, I work a lot more with sellers and with investors. That's my niche. But throughout my career, I worked with a lot of buyers. The first part of it was heavily into buyers. That's usually the tendency. Before you get into listings, you usually start with buyers. Why do you think that it's easier to work with buyers, or was easier to work with buyers?
Because people tend to come to you instead of you going after a listing.
That's a great answer, but the buyer doesn't pay the commission, or didn't used to pay the commission after the settlement, right? So because of that, there wasn't any financial aspect in between. So that way buyers, they got to work with whoever they wanted. You as an agent didn't get to be skilled when working with buyers. When you work with a listing or a seller, you have to be skilled. 1, because you have competition, and 2, because they're the ones that get their commission out of pocket, or at least used to. The only ones in the transaction, right? Like Giovanni was saying, we set up this class before the NAR settlement, right? Now things are gonna change in our industry. Essentially what it means is that seller is gonna pay for their side and buyer is gonna pay for their side. So now, because of that change, we're forced to be skilled when working with buyers. And that is exactly what I'm gonna be talking about, and how I was successful working with buyers, and the process that I run down from the start to finish to be able to be skilled on it. It comes down to that, guys, to be skilled. If you weren't professionally working with buyers or showing some sort of unique value proposition, you now have to do it with buyers and show your value to them. I'm gonna give 10 pointers, and the idea is to go through the process from start to finish with buyers and how you're able to lock them in so they can commit with you. Now more than ever, that they have to commit with you, because part of the settlement, in case you didn't know, So you have to have a buyer exclusive agreement before even going out to show properties to buyers. Before, it wasn't required. The same way that you work with sellers that are motivated, you have to work with buyers that are ready, willing, and able. You're not going to list a property for somebody that is not motivated to sell it. You shouldn't, right? It's a waste of time. The same thing with buyers. What is ready, willing, and able? Ready is the fact that they're ready to buy. If somebody is renting right now, which we encounter those cases here and there, and their lease ends in 6 months from now, they might be willing, they might want to buy a property, but they don't want to break their lease. They're not ready. Willingness is the fact of the desire of wanting, which most people, if they don't own a property, they want to own a property. So willing is easy, right? Ready, it depends on the current circumstances. Able, more than anything, we're talking about money. Where is the money coming from? Are you paying cash or you're financing? And if it's one of the two, you got to show me where the money is coming from. You have to be ready, willing, and able to buy. Now, point number 1. Every time that you come across a lead, personal referral, or you pay an online survey, Zillow, or something like that you get a lead, every interaction, if you think about it, start over the phone. As soon as you jump in that call with a prospect buyer, that's when the actual buyer consultation or the report starts. You have to take that in mind. The first step is whenever you jump in that first interaction over the phone, try to build rapport and try to find commonality with the buyer. Crack some jokes if you have to. Ask them questions where you can relate with them. Because if not, you never know, especially if you're paying for a lead, you're probably and most likely won't be the only person talking to that prospect. So build rapport. That's step number 1. Build rapport in that first interaction. Show value so they get to see something that they won't see with somebody else. Does that make sense? The second thing that you want to consider, the pre-qualification of that buyer start in that first interaction. Hear me out. In that first interaction, you want to pre-qualify the buyer. The same way that they're interviewing you, if you're the correct person to work with, you should be interviewing them to see if they're ready, willing, and able. Don't wait until you meet them at the property and waste time and gas. In that first call, you want to explain the process. And the purpose of that first call is to invite them to a buyer's consultation. If you don't plan on doing buyer consultation after July, you're going to be at a full disadvantage. Most people don't list their property with somebody that they haven't sit down, face to face, right? The same way is going to be with buyers. If I'm out there and I speak with the same prospect buyer than you, when you don't invite them to a buyer consultation and you don't do the face-to-face interaction and you don't show value like I do, I'm going to win that buyer. So because of that, now more than ever, you need to have, shouldn't be a non-negotiable, a buyer's consultation. And that's the purpose of that first interaction. You want to ask as many questions as possible, specifically on motivation. Why are you looking to buy? How soon do you want to buy? Are you currently renting? When is your lease ending? Ask as many questions as you can to find out more on their situation, and again, to find out more than anything if they're ready, willing, and able. Step number 3, show me the money. In that first interaction, you want to ask a simple question. Okay, Mr. Buyer, are you gonna be buying cash or financing? It's crazy. Some realtors, they're scared to asking that question. Oh, that's too personal. No, it's not. It's just part of the process. If you're buying, I need to know where the funds are coming from. So it's a simple question. You shouldn't be afraid to ask. That's one of the most essential ones. If they say cash, okay, Mr. Buyer, when you get a chance, I will need the proof of funds for that. You can bring it to the buyer consultation, or later on you can share with me. Oh, I'm financing. Okay, perfect. Have you done a pre-approval process with a lender? If the answer is no, then put them in contact with your preferred lender. You shouldn't even meet with them for a buyer consultation if they're not pre-approved. Why? Why would you invest that time? Oh, to build rapport. Well, that's good. You can build rapport in so many other ways. Going in your car, meeting in an office to build rapport is not time effective or efficient for you. Step number 4, which is the purpose of that first interaction, the main purpose. Invite them to a buyer consultation, like I said. Again, you have to make it a non-negotiable. And that buyer consultation, it could be in person. The fact of making it in person makes it more serious and more professional. And that's what you're looking for here, to show your value, right? But nowadays, we have access to all this technology like we're doing now, and we can have a full conversation, a full consultation through Zoom, some sort of virtual space like now. You have to have, again, a buyer consultation, which is basically a meeting where we both, prospect and myself as the agent, take some time to discuss the home buying process. You're a professional. Please dress like a professional. Act like a professional. Display yourself like a professional. Why? Because now that things have changed, where buyers are the one that are gonna be paying the commission and signing that exclusive buyers agreement, they want to work with somebody that is professional. Make sure that you have all the decision makers there. That should be a non-negotiable. If it's a couple, husband and wife, for example, you want to have husband and wife in that buyer consultation. If it's in person or if it's virtual. I've tried it before, and I'm sure that some of you have done it before, where the wife says, oh no, my husband will do whatever I tell them. Okay, that's great. But then you have the buyer consultation with her and then find out later on that the husband wants something else, or they change their mind later on. Usually why? Because they ended up having the conversation with the husband that wasn't in the buyer consultation in that meeting, and then changed the whole thing for you. You have to have all decisions maker. Oh, my husband only is available the weekend. Okay, so let's do a buyer consultation over the weekend. These are things, guys, that I've been trying to coach and teach with a lot of agents way before all of these. And a lot of people, they weren't implementing this. Now, guess what? They're forced to do it. And that's the beauty of what's going to happen with our industry that we get to discuss at the end. I'm sure that some of you have more questions regarding the settlement and all of that. Point number 7. I want you guys to open the mics. Why do I insist on having a buyer consultation? What do you think is the goal?
To make sure that they're ready to actually buy the property.
Yeah, that's one. Great.
So avoid misunderstanding the process to be on the same page.
Get a grasp of their motivation.
There you go. Motivation. Perfect.
To optimize time and also set up expectations and clear.
Setting the expectations. That's another key word. And all of them are super important. Basically 3 goals in the buyer consultation, and you all said it. Criteria. I want to know what exactly they're looking for. The same way that I ask a lot of questions over the phone in that first interaction, in that buyer consultation, I'm going to ask a lot of questions too. Explain the process. Somebody else said about explaining the process. I don't know if it was Monica. If they're first-time home buyers, they don't know what the process is. You deal with this on a daily basis. Sometimes we realtors confuse that, but they don't. And the good thing about the buyer consultation is that you have control of that explanation. You get to explain what an inspection is and what to expect an inspection, and they get to hear from yourself. An appraisal, the contract, you get to explain the contract, or at least the main points in the contract, so they get familiar with it. And the third main reason why that you want to accomplish in a buyer consultation, and nowadays most important one, is for them to sign a buyer's exclusive agreement. But you bring that up at the very end of the conversation once you show all the value, once they're excited, and once you get to explain the process and show.
One of the things that is going to distinguish a realtor is how educated they are. If, like Brian said, when you're meeting with this person in person, if they have a question about FIRPTA, you're able to explain. If they have a question about 1031 exchange, you're able to explain it. If they're asking you a question about a building on Fort Lauderdale on the beach, and you know this building inside and out, you know what special assessments, you know about the HOA fees, you know, and you're able to just impress them with your knowledge, that's going to make you stand out amongst other realtors. Where they speak to another realtor, this realtor has no idea what they're talking about or anything, or let me check on this. So that's why, like right now, it's so important to educate yourself.
Right on point. Sometimes, that's right on point. Thank you, Giovanni. I think sometimes we want to overcomplicate it. Guys, you don't know how many times I'm in the buyer consultation, and just because I took the time and explained the contract and the main pointers, Mr. Buyer, and I put a copy of the contract on the table, Mr. Buyer. So this is where you put the name of the seller. This is where you put the name of the buyer. This is where you put the price. Whenever we're ready to offer the escrow, what is an escrow? The escrow is this. This is how much I suggest that you put for a price point like this. Financing part is this. This is where you put the inspection period. What's an inspection and how long is an inspection period usually? And you take the time and explain each one of those things. Almost every time that I do that with every buyer, they say, wow, nobody have explained it to me like that before. People that have come from working with other realtors, my previous realtor, they didn't explain any of that. I asked them, hey, did your previous realtor, sometimes that happens, right? That they're working with somebody else or they want to work with somebody else. Oh yeah, we never sat down and he never took the time to explain it to me like this. So just that alone, guys, you have the advantage. Guys, that's super important. Setting the expectation throughout the process, because that's the part that is gonna save you time. Just to give you a reference, because I used to track these numbers when I was working with a lot of buyers. It only took me anywhere between 4 to 6 houses, show them 4 to 6 houses before they were ready to put an offer. I'm sure, and I've heard that before. Now, there's agents that have had to show 20, 30. I even heard once someone said that had to show more than 100 homes to a buyer before they were able to buy.
I have an agent who was supposed to be on today's class, but she told me she couldn't do it because she's got literally, her buyers want to see like 20 properties.
That is the problem. Like, you shouldn't be showing more than 3-4 houses at a time. Of the 20 houses that agent is showing today, the reality is that it's only 3 or 4 that they're considering. But you know what the problem is? That agent probably didn't take the time to get to know their buyer very well. And that's why just run around, you're showing and figure it out and see something stick. So what are the questions? I'm going to go over, I have a list of 23 questions. I can send it to you, but I'm going to go over and just mention it so you get to see what type of questions I get to ask to know that criteria. For example, what's prompting your move? I'm touching back on motivation. Why do you want to buy? What price range are you looking for? I go deeper in there because regardless of what the price point that they want to be at, if they're financing, you guys know or should know that it's subject to the financing part. So if they're financing, instead of focusing on what is the price point that they want to be looking at, is what is your monthly payment, your max monthly payment that you want to be at. Forget about, oh, I want to buy no more than 500,000. Okay, you already spoke with your lender. What was the very max monthly payment that you guys discussed or that you qualify for? Because remember, you should know by now that each house represents a different payment because each house pays a different taxes. Some of them have HOA, some don't. Property insurance, based on the conditions and the improvement of the house, property insurance varies, so the monthly payment changes as well. So you want to go and talk about, when you talk about numbers, monthly payments. When working with buyers, you want to be as detailed as possible. If we find a home today that meet all your needs, would you make an offer? Very important question, guys. If there's hesitation, that's a red flag. There might be something that they're not telling you there. How long have you been looking for? Are you working with an agent? In this case, that we're handling ourselves with the exclusive buyer's agreement, most likely they won't if they agree to a buyer consultation. But if they don't understand how things work, you want to ask that question. Are you shopping me around? You cannot list a property if that seller has a listing agreement signed with somebody else. The same way it's going to work with the buyer side now. So you want to have those conversations and know that ahead of time. Do you own any other property? Is there anybody else involved in the buying decision? What do you like about your current home or where you live right now? How many people will be living in the household? What are the names? What are the age? Do you have any pets? What location do you prefer? Any secondary location that you're looking for? Are schools important? How many bathrooms and bedrooms are you looking for? Approximately what size home are you looking for? What size yard? Do you need a pool or not? Are you open to HOAs? Are you looking for a home with a garage or not? Anything else that I need to know about? Look how many questions I'm asking. And that's just the basic questions that I start with. Just ask as many questions as possible. The way that I see it, at least, is psychological game. That's why I'm so passionate with working with buyers, because I get to get in their head and get to know exactly how they think, so I can think for them and look for that while they do their thing. It's a self-discovery process, guys, especially when working with buyers, first-time home buyers. And the very last thing that I usually ask is, okay, Mr. Buyer, I think I got a very good idea based on the questions that I ask you on what you're looking for. Now, I want you to give me 5 must-have. What are the things that the house that you're purchasing needs to have in order for you to move forward? And if it doesn't have it, you won't be buying anything. Close your questioning with must have. If they tell you, yeah, I'm looking for a 4-bedroom, 3 bathrooms. Okay, Mr. Buyer, if I'm able to get you the house that you're looking for, in the neighborhood that you're looking for, in the school district that you told me that you're looking for, with the backyard that you told me that you're looking for, but it only has 3 bedrooms instead of 4, are you open to that? Well, in that case, I think I am, yes. They then don't need 4 bedrooms. You know what that's called? Isolation. By me doing and asking this way, I'm isolating objections. I'm getting to realize stuff that they're not telling me, or even themselves, they're realizing stuff that they're not even consider it. So you got to be patient with them, and you got to be patient with yourself. After I have their criteria, after I explain the contract, I explain the process from start to finish, I set the expectations. Now we jump on the final step, signing the buyer exclusive agreement, the nitty gritty. Guys, after I show all this value and I just came with that buyer exclusive agreement and put it on the table and tell them, Mr. Buyer, now that we're ready and you're agreeing to work with me, I'm agreeing to work with you. This is what we call a buyer exclusive agreement. This is the commitment where you are saying is stating that I'm going to be your agent representing you from this more forward, and I'm committed to finding you that property. All you have to do is, for us to proceed is taking care of the proper paperwork. Please sign here. And if by any chance it's a 6-month agreement, if by any chance you don't feel comfortable with my services, we can cancel at any time. That's how I usually used to do it before, right? Now with this settlement, things have changed. It was a little easier for the buyer to sign, no issue, because after I show all this value that I sold myself, they didn't still have to pay me. So it was a win-win-win-win for them. It's like, I'm getting this professional for free. They signed no issues at all. Now, because of this settlement from July forward, the only thing that changes is that you have to get comfortable in asking more money. That's it. And what I mean by that is they're going to sign that agreement with then paying the commission. That's what it means, right? Before I jump into that, I want to open the conversations because I'm noticing our time and want to see if anybody have any questions with anything that I've said so far.
Brian, what is your process if somebody does tell you that their lease doesn't expire for 6 months and they want to move? When do you meet with them and how do you keep in touch with them during that time?
That's a great question. If it's 6 months from now, the first question is, let me ask you, are you willing to break your lease in order to purchase a home? If the answer is yes, don't worry about the 6 months. If they break their lease, usually the only consequence of breaking a lease is the deposit, right? That's usually how it works. Sometimes they have to pay for the remainder of the lease or whatever. That's between them and their landlord. But if they told you, I'm willing to break my lease, it's probably because they know what that entails and they're okay with releasing themselves from that in order to purchase a home. Now, if the answer is no, are you willing to keep that lease and purchase a home now and pay both rent? Most likely the answer is no. So why would I bother to start even helping you now? Let's keep in contact and closer to the date, meaning 90 days to 60 days closer to that lease ending, then we start the buying process. Does that make sense?
Yes. Just, it just seems that there should be some type of follow-up in place to make sure that buyer comes back to you.
Correct. I keep in contact with them. I provide as much value and then answer any questions from now.
Okay, great. Excellent information, the whole call. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions, guys, regarding the entire process?
Quick question for you. You say you've been in real estate for 8 years, and you said the first 4 were the toughest for you. When would you say that you probably were very sustainable at everything, the way you can say, hey, I actually got a business point here?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I actually made the mental decision and shift, I basically burned all my bridges. What I mean by that is 8 years doing real estate. The first 4, I tried a little bit of everything. I stick to open houses, right? At one point, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, right? It wasn't until I had a very vivid and straightforward conversation with my wife where she told me, Brian, you think that you gave real estate a try here? I was literally ready to embark in another business. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. I even got in a depression, because I was putting the work, but I wasn't getting the results, just working on myself. I set a goal for 2019 to do 72 open houses for the year. If you do the math, that's 6 open houses per month. All of them, I used to do it, and I decided to do it over the weekend because that's when you get the most traffic in an open house. So 3 out of the 4 weekends in a month, I was holding open houses Saturday and Sunday. Imagine that. I said no to a lot of family gatherings with friends, barbecues and stuff because I was doing open houses. I completed 72 open houses for the year. I connected with a ton of leads. Some open houses were successful with 50 people through the door. Some others, I didn't even get 1 person through the door. It's a numbers game. So whatever you decide to do in real estate, it's a numbers game. You cannot expect to get success by 1, 2, 3 open houses. It has to be like a big, broad number. By doing open houses, I connected with an investment company. As of today, is one of the largest investment companies down here in South Florida, and I'm their exclusive agent where I get to represent them with their flips. They flip properties, and they give me an average of 30 to 40 properties a year.
Thank you.
I just want to mention real quick, with the open houses. I'm personally a strong believer in it. You know, like everyone talks about how they don't have money for leads and things like this to buy. It doesn't cost you any money, even if you don't have listings. Reach out to people in your office, reach out to people in areas you want to farm. Ask them if you can do an open house. A lot of agents, even if will let you, because you know, if I have a listing, as long as it sells, I'm still making money regardless of who does the open house, you know? I personally think, I mean, I could think off the top of my head, probably 4 of the 5 best realtors I work with literally do open houses or their team every weekend. If these people are top agents and they're doing it consistently, it works. They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't work, just like Brian, you know? I just think it's amazing. Like, and you know, me too. Like what I do is when I have a closing, so usually when it's the first time I usually will ask them, how'd you get this listing? Or I mean, buy or whatever. Oh, an open house. Oh, are you doing any more? No. Like, and then they stop. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, you want to keep doing it, because like Brian said, it's a numbers game. You know, not everybody needs to like you, not everybody needs to use you, but the more people you meet with, the more connections you make, the more clients you're going to have, the more business you're going to do, you know? So just like I said about Brian, you know, from the beginning, he was consistent. It wasn't like he did 2 open houses and said, oh, this is not working, forget it, I'm giving up. Like he said, he had a goal. He was doing it every weekend, you know, and like, you know, I'm sure that there was things he'd rather be doing, you know, on those weekends, but instead he's working, you know.
100%. I always tell agents and all the agents that I coach, they're especially the newer agents, there's 2 ways to get business in real estate. One is the proactive and the other one is passive. Proactive is you going and prospecting, cold calling, circle prospecting, door knocking, open houses like Giovanni said. It's free, right? But you have to put in the time and volume as far as time, right? The other one is passive. You need resources, buying leads, advertising, social media, postcards, right? Where the business comes to you. But you have to invest money and you have to make that decision, right? Which one are you focusing on? Do you have the means and the resources to invest on the passive? That's an easier one. Now, once you invest that money, all you got to work on is conversions. Usually the main difference between one another is the proactive one is cheap. You don't have to invest money or anything more than your time. I didn't have the means, but I had the desire and I have the time. I made the commitment, 72 open houses an entire year. And that brought a lot of leads and that brought my biggest real estate clients right now.
Angelica asked a good question because actually someone that I actually did an open house with just recently, like I said, and she met, and we had a great amount of people coming in, and she followed up with them, and she really, you know, they were short with her. And that's what Angelica asked. How do you approach leads that you meet during open houses? They always just tend to ignore or end the call short.
That's a great one, guys. It comes back to unique value proposition. So the cool thing about open houses for me is, again, I like the face-to-face interaction, right? I had the opportunity to have somebody in front of me and I got to show them value. How do you show value to somebody? First of all, show interest. Ask them questions, right? What is the motivation? If they're coming with kids, just, you know, if you have something to relate with, start breaking the ice with that. Oh, my kids also play soccer or this and that, right? Start the conversation. Sometimes you're going to counter with people that they're not represented. They don't have any agents. Well, that's easier. You just show your value and try to convince it to work with you and to jump in a buyer consultation with you. Sometimes they're working with the real estate agent. Here's the thing. Before, you didn't need an exclusive buyer's agreement, right? So knowing that and knowing that most agents didn't enforce that, I had the opportunity to know if and build rapport with that prospect and see if the agent was serving them well. And what I mean by that, you don't know how many times they told me, yes, I asked the questions, I built a rapport in the open houses, and I asked them, are you currently working with a real estate agent? And they told me yes. And I start asking questions. Okay, how many properties have you seen? Oof, probably more than 50 now. Oh, really? How many offers have you put in? Oof, probably 10. Guys, keep asking questions. Why do you think is that? Oh, this and that, or my agent is saying this and that, and that. It's like, well, by asking questions, I got to find out that in the contract, they were putting 15 days inspection period. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Who does that? We're in a very competitive market. Who puts 15 days inspection period? Mr. Buyer, you seem to be a very qualified person. You're telling me that you're pre-approved. How much are you putting in deposit? No, my agent told me that at 5,000. Mr. Buyer, you're buying a property for 800,000. I think that's too low. That's not competitive. So just by asking questions, I got to find out exactly what the circumstances are and why that agent wasn't serving them. I'm not trying to throw that agent, down or talk back about that agent, but I'm gonna show value. And I got to convert people, and they themselves realized that they had more value working with me with their current agents. That was back when the buyer's exclusive agreement wasn't enforced, right? Things have changed now. And that's the part where, in the dynamic where we're gonna see how that's gonna play out. Because technically, if they come to an open house and they say I'm working with an agent, technically now what that's gonna mean is that they sign exclusive agreement. But nothing stops you from asking, oh, you're working with the realtor? Have you signed the exclusive agreement yet? If the answer is no, it's a free game, guys. And the intention is not to throw that agent under the bus or anything, but the same way that you call the same prospect lead when you call for a listing and that listing lead gets 10, 20 calls from agents, the same way we're competing for the same buyer now more than ever. So to answer and summarize the question is show value. And an open house, you have them in front of you. Most likely it's on a weekend that they're relaxed, they're excited. They just came out from church and you get the opportunity to have that conversation in a relaxed environment.
Camila asked, Brian, how do you build rapport with investors, and how does the buyer's broker's agreement come into play with investors, since they tend to work with whoever brings them the best deal?
Yeah, that's a great question. The lawsuit settlement, even though it might be very clear on what states and what's possibly going to happen, we don't know how things are going to play out from this point forward and how people will decide to do it. When working with the buyer is very simple. Now, the investment world, and I'm very familiar with it because again, I work directly with that big investment group. We do a lot of all type of properties. It works differently. There's a lot of more informalities. For good or bad, it's very informal. So most likely things won't change in that matter. When working with investors, investors that work often, they won't sign any agreement. It will be an informal process. I don't think that will make any difference on the investment world because they're not looking for a property for themselves. They're just looking for the best deal and they don't want to be attached to one agent. With investors, it's a case by case. They're caring about the deal and making the deal work so they can make money. And if you're the one bringing it in, you make the money for somebody else. So yeah, that wouldn't make, in my opinion, any difference. But one last thing, because I know that the concern is, but the money, where is it coming from? Who's going to pay me? I want to leave you with this when it comes to buyer and the commission. Guys, don't be afraid on where the money is coming from. You just got to get comfortable with asking the money. No difference than, it happened with asking to sellers. The cool thing is this, the settlement, it's going to prohibit with advertised commission on the MLS for the buyer's agent, right? But that doesn't stop you from negotiating any commission outside of the MLS. So the sellers are still able to pay commission. It's just that they won't be able to advertise it on the MLS. That's one. Same way with agents do. The only thing for me, for example, that is changing me, that I'm heavily on listings, is we're going to be paying commission to the buyer's agent. But it's going to be a case by case because it won't be listed on the MLS. And you as the buyer's agent will have to call my office. And my assistant, she's going to be informed on how much that property is going to be paid to the buyer's agent for commission or concessions. Either way, you're going to have to take an extra step and you have to call and find that out, because you won't have that information. No difference than how it plays out on the commercial side. Commercial agents in the commercial industry, they don't post commission. It's a case by case too. And usually if you represent a tenant or a commercial client, you still have to call the agent and find that out how much that person pays for commissions. Remember too, we're allowed to get concessions. The cool thing about getting concessions from the seller side is that can help with paying for the buyer, paying your commission. So this is how I'm gonna decide to deal with buyers. I have my buyer consultation. I got to know what they're looking for. I explained the process. I set the expectations. I sold myself. They're happy because they're going to be working with me. I'm happy because I'm working with them. I bring the buyer exclusive agreement on the table and I say, Mr. Buyer, this is my commission. Let's say that you decide to work for a 3% commission. As your buyer's agent, I'm going to try to negotiate that commission or as much of that commission from the seller or the listing agent. Now, if I'm not able to get that through a commission or through a concession from them, you will have to pick up on the tab and you're the one that will have to come up with that 3% at closing cost. I might be able to negotiate part of that money, maybe 1.5% on concessions or commission outside of the MLS. I just want you to know and realize that whatever difference between what I negotiate and the 3% that I charge, you will have to come up from your funds at closing. But in the very base case scenario that I negotiate the full 3%, that's what we're hoping for. And with my track record and negotiating skills, then you pay 0%. That's the conversation, guys. Any questions?
Yeah, I think basically two things. On the listing side is I don't think many experienced realtors are going to be telling their sellers, don't worry, you don't have to pay nothing. Buyer pays that. Yeah. You're going to explain to them, you may have to pay something. And if you want your property shown and sold for the highest, amount, you're going to have to offer something, I think, because just like you said, if you have a potential buy for $1 million and you're calling places and, and they're telling you that we're giving you 0, you're going to probably tell your buyer, just like you said, hey, listen, I have 5 properties you might be interested in. This one's paying me 3% where you don't have to pay me nothing. This one's paying 0. You're going to have to pay me the $30,000. Your buyer might not even want to see that property. Yeah. So I think, it's going to be very rare where a listing agent instructs their client or tells their client, don't worry, you don't have to pay nothing. So it's, as you said, it's going to be just like commercial property where everything's negotiated.
Money needs to find a way to land, and the lenders are going to be affected the same way. And the good lenders, like Mark, being proactive, they're putting together already try to help agents. Because again, the lenders, and especially private lenders, mortgage companies, most of their business come from us guys. So it's in their best interest to come up with creative ways to figure this out for us to be taken care of. So that's another reason why I know that even on the lender side, things are gonna get creative on how they can make things possible and easier for buyers. The only one here affected, and this isn't my personal opinion, the most affected one out of all of these are the buyers. Because they're the ones that now needs to figure it out where those funds come from. And if they have a good agent like yourself, like myself, we can negotiate those things so they don't have to pick up the tab. But if not, they will have to come up with something. Either finance it through the lender if that's ever allowed, or something like that, or something get created, or come up with the funds. But you as an agent needs to work. Your responsibility and mine is to get our value proposition on point, so asking for money is not uncomfortable.
Janice asked, how would you handle new construction when they offer more than the percentage on the buyer agreement? I mean, my personal opinion, you can is I think, like I said, these buyer's brokerage agreements really are not set in stone yet, but I think it's going to be stating that kind of like, the bot, you're making this amount regardless, but anything in addition, like if you're able to get the seller to pay it's more, you're going to still get that. So I'm sure there's going to be language in there that you're still going to get as much as possible, that you don't waive it because, so.
The good thing, and I spoke with somebody, I was speaking with somebody too. I have an agent, she's in Orlando, and there's a lot of new construction in Orlando. And she was telling me, Brian, like, I'm already, that the part where they're saying that you can ask for concessions, and now that's gonna get more common to ask for concessions from the seller. He's like, Brian, I'm already used to asking for concessions because most of the properties that we transact here, at least in the area that she's in, are new constructions. And usually that's very common for them to offer 3% concessions. So that's something that I'm still curious to see how it's going to play out on how things are going to work as far as that. Are developers going to be willing to give more concessions But here's how I see it too. The good thing with developers is like they're investors. And with the investors, there's no emotions. They just care about numbers. And as long as the numbers work for them, they don't care who gets paid who in the middle of the transactions. So they're gonna figure something out where they're taking care of as well. The ones that are gonna be the most effective are those buyers, and we all have had those buyers where they're scratching every single dollar to be able to purchase a home. Now we're coming up with more and putting more on their plate. Those are the ones that are going to be more affected.
Alan asked at the time of scheduling the appointment to show a house, should we be asking at that time what the buyer's commission seller will pay rather than showing and finding out later?
At the time of the appointment, like
when you're scheduling the appointment, yeah, I think you definitely want to know, because you know, not only for yourself, for your buyer, because as I said, if they're offering no commission, your buyer should be aware of, hey, if we put an offer on this property, you're going to be the one have to pay me my commission. And also you may want to take that into consideration in the offer. Maybe you're going to offer less money knowing that they're not paying the buyer's agent any commission. So
100%. So 100%. I every time that I take a buyer out, I call the agent. That's part of my thing. Even if it shows active on the MLS, I call in to confirm that it's active, because sometimes it's getting under contract, or it got under contract and I forgot to change the status. So I call the agents. I'm used to calling the agents and listing agents and asking, hey, the property's still available. Just wanted to double check before I take my buyers to see it. If they say yes, the very next question that from this point forward I'm gonna start mentioning is like, hey, how much are you guys paying for commission, or are you paying any commission or concessions? So it's just a question. And they will let you know. You go show the property, and once they're ready to put the offer, whatever information they told you, concessions or commission, you put it in the contract. And people like Giovanni are gonna be ready at that point and help you structure on what is the correct verbiage in that moment. So that's always gonna be. It's gonna be different. And part of something else, like Giovanni was mentioning, because you also want to have that conversation with the buyer in case they're not paying commission or the full commission. Then you have to have that conversation with the buyer. If they say, if when I call the listing agent, they say I'm paying 1.5, then you turn to your buyer and say, hey, they're only paying 1.5. Are you gonna pay the remaining 1.5? Yes. There's something that we even structuring in my company where you will have one page and you put it in front of the contract where you disclose all of that, and you have your buyer sign saying that they're gonna be picking up the difference. So those are the things and the documents that are gonna start coming out, you know, per company, for the association, where you're gonna get you're gonna be able to write that down. So yes, before showing any property, you want to have those conversations with the seller side and with the buyer side. How do you enforce what the listing agent tells you about commission amount over the phone? How do you enforce it? There's the contract. What would you say, Giovanni? It's to do.
Well, I think there also is going to be probably commission agreements are probably going to go into place where you have, you know, you're having them sign something where they're agreeing to pay you that amount. Because right now it's the MLS that's basically what controls your commission. So just like actually in the contract, I think that's going to change in the contract. Because like in the contract, there's a section where it says the MLS is what controls your commission. You know, so I think that's going to have to be removed from the contract.
I could easily see it if they agree to 3% and the contract, the seller side is only giving 1.5. Whenever it's time to share all the documents with you in Supreme Title, for example, I have to send my buyer's agreement where I'm showing Supreme Title, hey, the buyer, by the way, the buyer is picking up for this amount. And that's how everybody's going to know. Just, you know, the cool thing about enforcing, that's one of the exciting part about, in my opinion, it's about these, the settlement is that we're going to have a buyer's exclusive agreement. We need to have a buyer exclusive agreement signed with every buyer before showing a property. So it's bringing formality to the industry, guys. It's bringing formality, and that part I'm excited for. So it's gonna be like it's straightforward, no, you know, just up in the air. So like any other negotiation, that you usually have, even in inspection, that the listing agent tells you, yeah, the seller agrees to replace the panel. You don't finish that inspection period without having that addendum saying that, yes or no. So the same way with the commissions. Before moving forward with anything, you may want to have something in writing showing where your commission is coming from.
Yeah, but Patricio said, so we will need a commission addendum on every contract. Okay. Right now, I just pull out a contract. Right now, in the contract, the last paragraph, page 13, the last sentence says, this contract shall not modify any MLS or other offer of compensation made by seller or listing broker to cooperating broker. As I said, I think that provision is going to be obsolete once these changes take place because you're not offering any commission on the MLS, okay? So one, by removing that, now the contract is determining your commission. So whatever's written in the contract will be what you get paid. I mean, so, but I think like in the class I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be advising the agents that, you know, once this, if they don't change the contract by then, that they really need to cross out that line. Because really, if the MLS is not offering buyer's agent a commission, it's really, that doesn't need to be there.
The way that I see these guys, again, is just, it's a case by case. And I keep giving this example to people. I was so used to, when showing properties to a buyer, I'm not even looking at the commission at the bottom of the MLS. Why? Because most agents were paying 3% or 2.5%. Maybe 1 or 2 cases, I only got 2%. And I was comfortable with getting that. As long as I was getting the property that my buyers wanted it, I was okay with that. So I wasn't even looking at how much the agents were paying on commission before showing any property, because it was super standard, right? It was there. And if it was there, it was guaranteed. That's how it used to work.
Yeah.
Now, the only difference is that I now need to pay attention to that. That's it. I need to pay attention and know where the money is coming from. And again, get comfortable with asking money to the buyer if they really want this property. Because remember something, if that's in the case, in the event that they really, really want this property, they want to work with you, and the other side is not offering anything. But if the other side is going to offer anything, which again, if we have good trained listing agents, those good and trained listing agents are gonna negotiate for us too, through commission or concessions. So that's brings me to another point. Now more than ever, the relationship between agents
Yes.
is gonna matter so much. More than ever, now you wanna have good relationship with agents. Top producer agents that they control the market and they have all the listings, because it's an easier conversation about commission once you know and have some sort of relationship with the other side.
And you're also going to remember the agents who are offering you zero commission, so that when they have a buyer,
Yes.
the way you're treating your buyers, when you have a list, the way you're treating the buyers is the way you want to be treated when you have a buyer.
In the hundreds of transactions that I've been with, I'm a pretty easy going guy as far as going, the smoothness in the transaction, but there's agents that they complicate things.
Yeah.
So you're going to remember those agents that they don't know how to negotiate commissions for the buyers, and most likely, that they won't offer anything. But then also you're going to remember those that they're going to be so trained on how to negotiate these concessions with their sellers that you're always going to have something guaranteed there.